The cool October morning in Chicago drew an unexpected crowd to the Riverside estate sale. Curious shoppers moved through rooms filled with decades of collected belongings. Among them was antique dealer Sophia Martinez, moving with calm confidence. Her trained eye quickly sorted true value from simple clutter as she walked through the large Tudor-style mansion. The Williamson family had lived in this home for almost 100 years before the final heir, an elderly woman named Margaret Williamson, died without children. Now strangers searched through what had once been deeply personal possessions. Every object carried a small price tag, turning a lifetime of memories into just a few dollars. In the mansion's wood-paneled library, Sophia came across a group of framed photographs arranged neatly on an old mahogany desk. Most were ordinary family images from different decades, graduation portraits, wedding photos, holiday moments. But one frame immediately stood out. It had an ornate silver border, darkened and worn by time. The photograph inside was clearly from the 1920s, judging by the clothing and photographic style. It showed a young couple sitting together in what looked like their living room. The man wore a three-piece suit with a pocket watch chain, his hair slicked back in the style popular at the time. The woman sat beside him in a drop-waist dress typical of the flapper era, her posture graceful and her smile soft. Between them, held gently in the woman's arms, was an infant who appeared no older than 6 months. The baby wore a long christening gown made of fine white lace, the kind wealthy families ordered for special events. At first look, the image seemed to show the comfort and success of the roaring 20s. A prosperous couple with their beloved child in a well-furnished home. The lighting was clearly professional, suggesting this was a formal portrait and not a casual snapshot. But as Sophia studied the photograph more carefully, something about the baby's face made her stop. While the parents smiled warmly at the camera, full of pride and calm happiness, the infant's eyes told a different story. There was a clear intensity in that small face. It was not the blank, innocent look most babies have, but something that felt alert, even troubled. Sophia bought the photograph for $25, unable to shake the feeling that those tiny eyes were trying to communicate something important. Back at her antique shop in Lincoln Park, Sophia carefully removed the photo from its frame for a closer look. Years of experience had taught her that the back of old photographs often held the most important details. Photographer stamps, dates, names, or handwritten notes often explained the image's story. On the back, she found exactly what she hoped for. An embossed stamp read Henryk Kowalski Photography Studio, Chicago, Illinois. Beneath it was a date written in elegant handwriting, October 15, 1920. Below that, in a different hand, were 3 names: Robert, Catherine, and baby Thomas Williamson. Sophia's heart began to race. She recognized the name Kowalski. Henryk Kowalski had been one of Chicago's most respected portrait photographers in the 1920s, famous for photographing the city's wealthy elite. His work was highly valued by collectors, but more importantly, he was known for keeping detailed records. If his studio archives still existed, they could reveal more about this specific session. Sophia spent the next 2 hours searching online archives and historical records. What she found made the photograph even more compelling. Robert Williamson had been a successful banker in 1920 and a member of Chicago's financial upper class. Catherine Williamson, born Catherine Hartford, came from an old and wealthy family whose fortune was built on railroad investments in the late 1800s. But it was the information about baby Thomas that stopped Sophia completely. A Chicago Tribune obituary from November 1920 revealed that Thomas Williamson had died just 1 month after the photograph was taken. The cause of death was listed as sudden infant death syndrome, though medical knowledge of SIDS at that time was very limited. Sophia looked again at the photograph, focusing on the baby's eyes. Knowing that Thomas would be dead within weeks made his expression feel even more unsettling. Was it possible that, in some strange way old photographs sometimes seem to do, the camera had captured something invisible to the adults present? Sophia reached for her phone and called Dr. Elizabeth Chen, a photography historian at Northwestern University who specialized in early 20th century portrait photography. If anyone could help explain the technical details, it would be her. "I have a 1920 Kowalski portrait that's unusual," Sophia explained. "The baby's expression doesn't match the parents at all. It's almost like the child is seeing something they can't." "Bring it in tomorrow morning," Dr. Chen replied, clearly intrigued. Kowalski was known for capturing things others missed. His portraits often revealed more than people intended. Dr. Elizabeth Chen's office at Northwestern University looked like a small museum of photography history. Old cameras from different eras filled the shelves, and the walls displayed important portraits from nearly 200 years of photographic work. When Sophia arrived the next morning, Dr. Chen was already setting up her equipment. "Henryk Kowalski," Dr. Chen said thoughtfully as she placed the photograph under special lighting. "He was a fascinating figure in Chicago photography. He immigrated from Poland in 1910 and became known for portraits that captured inner character, not just appearance. Using magnifying tools, she examined every detail. The technical quality is outstanding, even for him. Look at the depth, the texture of the mother's dress, the fine detail of the baby's gown." Sophia watched as Dr. Chen focused closely on the infant's face. "What's strange about his expression?" Dr. Chen continued. "Babies this young usually have very limited expressions. They smile reflexively, cry, or sleep. But this child seems to be concentrating on something outside the camera frame." She adjusted the equipment. "Look at his gaze. He's not looking at his parents or the photographer. He's looking slightly to the left of the camera." "Could it be a noise?" Sophia asked. "Possibly," Dr. Chen said, "but his expression isn't curiosity or surprise. It looks more like tiredness, even fear." Dr. Chen then studied the lighting and shadows. "There's something else. Kowalski usually preferred soft natural light, but here we see multiple light sources. These shadows suggest a strong light coming from the same direction the baby is looking toward. It's not typical of his style." She leaned back, removing her glasses, a gesture Sophia sensed was meaningful. "In my experience, when babies this young focus this strongly, they're reacting to something very real in the room. The question is, what was there that we can't see?" "The baby died a month later," Sophia said quietly. "SIDS, according to the records." Dr. Chen's expression darkened. "That changes things. In 1920, many infant deaths were labeled SIDS simply because doctors didn't know better. Combined with this expression, I think we need to research this family more deeply." Sophia spent the next several days at the Chicago History Museum. At first, the Williamson records showed a typical wealthy family life: charity events, business news, society columns. But deeper research revealed a more troubling story. Robert Williamson had not just been a banker. He had been connected to several questionable financial deals in 1919 and 1920, some later investigated for fraud. Though never charged, his actions had cost other families their savings. More concerning were the personal details. Catherine Williamson had been hospitalized twice in 1920 for what doctors called nervous exhaustion, a common label at the time for severe anxiety or depression. Then Sophia found a small notice in the Chicago Tribune Society section from November 1920. After the tragic death of their infant son Thomas, Mr. and Mrs. Robert Williamson announced plans to travel abroad indefinitely on a doctor's advice for Mrs. Williamson's health. Property records showed that the Williamsons sold their North Lakeshore Drive home in December 1920, just 2 months after the portrait and 1 month after Thomas's death. The sale was rushed and quiet, and the house sold for far less than its value. At the Chicago Public Library's genealogy section, Sophia uncovered something even more disturbing. Thomas was not their first child to die. Catherine had given birth to a daughter, Mary, in 1918. Mary died at 8 months old. Her death was also labeled sudden infant death syndrome. 2 babies, both dead before their first birthdays. Both deaths blamed on a poorly understood condition. Sophia stared at the photograph again, at baby Thomas's worried eyes. Had he somehow sensed danger? Her research led to one final discovery. The Williamson house was still standing. It had been converted into luxury condominiums in the 1980s, but much of the original structure remained. The current owner of the unit that once belonged to the Williamsons was Dr. Amanda Foster, a pediatrician who had bought the condo partly for its history. Sophia called her and explained everything. "I'd like to see where the photo was taken," Sophia said. "Sometimes the space itself gives answers." "Of course," Dr. Foster replied. "But I should warn you, there are some unusual things about this apartment that may interest you." Dr. Amanda Foster's condominium occupied the entire third floor of the elegant limestone building on North Lake Shore Drive. As she showed Sophia around, it was easy to imagine the home as it looked in 1920. High ceilings, wide rooms, large windows facing Lake Michigan. A home designed to show success and status. "The living room where the photo was likely taken is here," Dr. Foster said, leading her inside. "I kept the historical feel while updating it." Sophia compared the photograph to the room. Despite modern furniture, the layout matched. Window placement, architectural details, even where the family likely sat. "When I bought this place 15 years ago, I studied its history," Dr. Foster said. "The Williamson story fascinated me. As a pediatrician, the children's deaths especially caught my attention." "Mystery?" Sophia asked. Dr. Foster nodded. "I've seen thousands of infant cases. SIDS happens, but 2 deaths in the same family within 2 years is extremely rare. Today, it would raise serious questions." She walked to a bookshelf and pulled out a folder. "After I moved in, I found some items left behind, stored in the basement for decades." Sophia's heart pounded as Dr. Foster opened it. Inside were old bills, letters, photographs, and most importantly, a letter written by Catherine Williamson to her sister. It was dated November 20th, 1920, just 5 days after baby Thomas died. "May I?" Sophia asked softly, reaching for the letter. The handwriting was unsteady, written by someone overwhelmed with grief and fear. "Dearest Margaret, I cannot stay in this house even one more day. Thomas is gone, just like Mary, and in my heart I know that Robert is involved. I cannot bring myself to write the words, but you already know what I fear. The doctor claims it was the same illness that took Mary, but I have seen the way Robert looks at the children when he believes no one is watching. There is something cold in H's eyes, something that terrifies me. I found a bottle of laudanum hidden in his study, far more than anyone would need for simple pain. And on the night Thomas died, Robert was alone with him for more than an hour before calling for help. When I touched my baby's skin, it was so cold, Margaret, so terribly cold." Sophia's hands shook as she finished reading the letter. She looked up at Dr. Foster, who nodded with a grim expression. "There's more," Dr. Foster said softly. "I think you should see what used to be the nursery." She led Sophia down the hallway to a room that had been converted into her office. This was the nursery in 1920. During renovations, I found something behind the original wallpaper that previous owners never removed. She pointed to a section of wall where the old wallpaper had been preserved behind glass. "Look closely at the pattern." Sophia studied the soft floral design typical of the time. As she looked more carefully, she noticed small dark marks interrupting the pattern. They looked almost like fingerprints. Dr. Foster nodded. Tiny fingerprints, pressed into the wallpaper at about the height where a crib would have stood. And that's not all. She showed another section where the stains were darker and more uneven. These tested positive for laudanum when I had them analyzed, just out of curiosity. Sophia felt her head spin. "You think Robert Williamson was drugging his children?" "I believe he was slowly poisoning them with laudanum, Dr. Foss," Tara replied. "And Catherine suspected it but had no proof. Laudanum was easy to get in 1920 and commonly used for pain, sleep, and many other complaints. A man like Robert would have had no trouble obtaining it. In infants, laudanum poisoning could easily be mistaken for natural illness by doctors of that era." Dr. Foster went to her desk and took out another document. "I also found this, a partial diary entry Catherine hid under a loose floorboard. The diary, written in Catherine's increasingly frantic handwriting, described a terrifying situation. October 10th, 1920. Thomas has been so weak lately, sleeping far more than any healthy baby should. When I mentioned this to Robert, he grew angry and accused me of being overprotective, as he did when Mary was ill. But I watch him when he thinks I am not looking. I have seen him give Thomas what he calls medicine, and afterward the baby always becomes drowsy. I found the same small brown bottle in Robert's study, the same kind that was there when Mary was sick. He says it is for his back pain, yet I have never seen him take it. There are marks on the bottle, tiny scratches, as if someone has been measuring doses. Tonight I will watch more carefully. I will protect Thomas, even if it means— The entry ended suddenly, the handwriting trailing off as if Catherine had been interrupted. Sophia looked again at the photograph, now understanding the deep weariness in baby Thomas's eyes. He was looking at his father during the poor try. "Tea," she said quietly. "That would be my conclusion," Dr. Foster agreed. "Babies are extremely sensitive. If Robert had been poisoning him, Thomas would have learned to fear his father. That expression is not random. It is a baby recognizing danger." With this new understanding, Sophia returned to her research with renewed urgency. She needed Henryk Kowalski's studio records, hoping they might confirm their suspicions. After several calls and emails, she learned that Kowalski's archives had been donated to the Chicago Photography Archives at Columbia College. The archivist, Dr. Marcus Webb, agreed to meet her. Kowalski was very precise, Dr. Webb explained as they went into the climate-controlled basement. He recorded not only technical details, but also personal observations. They found the 1920 ledger and turned to the October entries. In Kowalski's neat handwriting was the record for October 15, 1920. Mr. and Mrs. Robert Williamson with infant son Thomas. Formal family portrait for holiday cards. Payment received. Natural light from east windows with reflector. Mrs. Williamson very anxious, checking baby often. Mr. Williamson impatient, wanted session finished quickly. Unusual family dynamic. Baby distressed whenever father approached. Mrs. Williamson very protective, refused to allow husband to hold child. Infant healthy in appearance but unusually alert and wary for age. Suggested rescheduling, but Mr. Williamson insisted. Final exposures show clear infant distress when father moved closer. Mrs. Williamson requested certain poses not be included. A chill ran through Sophia. Even the photographer had noticed the child's fear. Dr. Webb then produced a folder of correspondence. Inside was a letter dated November 25, 1920, from Catherine Williamson. She asked for all photographs and negatives, but also requested that Kowalski document and preserve any concerns he had noticed, asking him not to tell her husband. She wrote that her baby's eyes in the final photograph had captured something important and begged him to protect it. Sophia realized she had uncovered evidence of murders hidden for over a century. She contacted Detective Maria Santos of the Chicago Police Department's Cold Case Unit. After reviewing the photograph, letters, wallpaper evidence, and studio records, Detective Santos nodded thoughtfully. "We can't prosecute a case from 1920, she said, "but this fits what we now understand about family annihilators, often driven by money. Laudanum poisoning would have been almost impossible to detect then, especially when the suspect was a respected banker." Detective Santos searched further and uncovered more disturbing facts. Robert Williamson remarried in 1925 to a wealthy widow, Helen Morrison, who had 2 young children. Both children died within 2 years. Helen herself died in 1928. By 1930, Robert had inherited her wealth and moved to California, where he lived comfortably until his death in 1954. "He did it again," Sophia whispered. "It certainly appears so," Detective Santos replied. As news of Sophia's discovery spread, she received a call from Dr. Patricia Williamson, a retired psychiatrist and great-great-niece of Catherine Williamson. She had been researching her family history for years. They met in Chicago, where Dr. Williamson brought Catherine's complete diary, mailed in pieces to her sister Margaret between 1920 and 1925. The diary told the painful story of a woman who realized her husband was killing their children but was trapped by her time. The entry from October 15, 1920, revealed Catherine's fear during the portrait session. She described Robert's cold expression, his anger when she wanted poses without him, and her growing fear that he saw their children as obstacles. Later entries confirmed her belief that Robert murdered Thomas. She wrote of confronting him and deciding to flee for her life. 6 months after Sophia's discovery, the case became the focus of academic study. Dr. Chen organized a symposium at Northwestern University on photography as historical evidence. The enlarged portrait of baby Thomas hung behind Sophia as she spoke. His eyes, once ignored, now told their truth. Dr. Patricia Williamson wept quietly in the audience. After the event, she shared Catherine's final letter, written before her death. In it, Catherine stated clearly that her children were murdered by their father, that she had carried the truth for decades, and that she hoped someone would one day understand. She thanked whoever found the truth for listening to her baby's silent testimony. The portrait was placed permanently in the Chicago History Museum, displayed with the full story. Visitors often paused at the baby's expression, now knowing what those eyes had been trying to say all along.